Now on KOAM News, area school districts launch plans for tracking COVID cases in the new school year.
Evacuations out of Afghanistan are picking up, but still tens of thousands are waiting. I'm Skyler Henry at the White House, where President Biden is sticking with his end of the month withdrawal deadline.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
As many area school districts head back to the classroom this week, they face continuing challenges from the pandemic. This is KOAM News at 5. Local schools are working with health departments and families to track COVID-19 cases. The Carl Junction School District plans to track numbers daily as they receive updates from the Jasper County and Joplin Health Departments. The district's assistant superintendent says they'll use a dashboard to keep track of cases, determining how they operate for the school year.
If we had a situation where we saw that we were having a significant increase in numbers, then we would take that into consideration and we would use that information to make decisions. I can tell you that currently our numbers are very low. We have 0 staff members in isolation or quarantined. We've only got 4 students that are isolated.
Carl Junction School District will compile data every Wednesday and post it onto their district website's homepage, where anyone can see current case numbers within the district. Nick Kelly, the dangerous heat continues.
Yeah, again, Dow, it'll certainly look like a nice day to be out in the bell, but once you step foot outside, especially with an enticing sky that we're seeing for 7th and range line, doesn't change the fact that it was hot today with highs in the mid-90s at the very least, and with the high humidity, no wonder the heat advisory is stuck in place for today, and they'll continue to do so until we get into Thursday evening at the latest. No breaks from the heat or humidity this evening, at least in the form of any showers or thunderstorms. They're well to the north of the region where our next front lies. In the short term, though, we are seeing anywhere temperatures from 93 in Fort Scott to 97 in Yates Center. It feels like they're triple digits easily with the humidity this high. Feels like 100 in Pittsburgh, maybe 106 over in Neodesha. Mainly a warm evening, but we will drop back through the 80s, 70s, down to 74 tonight. We'll see how long this plans on sticking around when we dig in deep into the forecast later on down.
Thanks, Nick. President Biden is providing new details on plans to evacuate U.S. troops from Afghanistan. The U.S. is scrambling to get tens of thousands more Americans and Afghan allies out of the country by the end of the month. Skyler Henry reports from the White House.
President Biden says he's aiming to stick to an August 31st deadline to evacuate U.S. troops from Afghanistan. The announcement came shortly after the president held a virtual meeting with G7 allies who are concerned about the deteriorating situation in the region.
The number one condition we're setting as G7 is that they've got to guarantee right the way through August the 31st and beyond, safe passage for those who want to come out.
The Pentagon says evacuations have been picking up speed, but there are still tens of thousands of Americans and Afghan allies to be withdrawn.
We believe that we have that we have the capability, the ability to get that done by the end of the month.
White House officials tell CBS News President Biden has drawn up contingency plans in case the deadline isn't met and is relying on cooperation from the Taliban. The Taliban has already signaled that failure to meet the deadline would be a red line and has barred Afghan citizens from leaving the country.
It is a violation of the commitment that President Biden has made.
Some Republican lawmakers who received a classified briefing on the matter Tuesday say the Taliban shouldn't be dictating the timetable.
We should stay until every single American is able to get out of Afghanistan. We should explain that this is what is going to happen, and anybody in our way to stop us from bringing an American out will be in danger.
With the deadline just 1 week away, the U.S. has deployed helicopters and troops in select spots in Kabul to rescue stranded Americans and Afghan allies. Skyler Henry, CBS News, the White House.
Pentagon says about 1 flight is leaving out of Kabul every 45 minutes. The U.S. has also designated 4 military bases in the U.S. to house evacuees once they reach America. The U.S. House of Representatives hopes to wrap up its business by the end of the day after approving a measure to advance both the bipartisan physical infrastructure bill and a larger budget reconciliation package that focuses on the president's human infrastructure priorities. House Democrats reached an agreement today on next steps following a late-night standoff of negotiations in the Speaker's office. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo left office at midnight last night. Cuomo announced his resignation earlier this month following a report by the state's attorney general that found he sexually harassed 11 women. Cuomo denied the allegations. On his last day yesterday, he granted clemency to 6 people, including a man convicted of murder and robbery in 1983. As soon as Cuomo left office, the new governor, Kathy Hochul, took the oath of office and became New York's first woman governor. Hochul, who was the state's lieutenant governor, promised to change the state's political culture and work to ensure that New Yorkers, quote, believe in their government again, end quote. Charlie Watts, the drummer who provided the backbone of the Rolling Stones songs for more than half a century, has died. He was 80 years old. His passing comes after he pulled out of the band's U.S. tour following an emergency heart operation. His publicist says Watts passed away peacefully in a London hospital surrounded by his family. Later, getting learning back up to speed.
As students return to the classroom, many are suffering from a learning loss after a difficult year. I'm Elise Preston in New York with expert tips on how parents can narrow the education gap.
But first, the link between common over-the-counter pain relievers and stomach ulcers. Topping today's Health Watch, every day millions of people take meds known as NSAIDs to relieve their pain. But many aren't aware that these popular drugs can also lead to a serious complication. If you've ever had pain, chances are you've taken an NSAID. This common class of drugs includes meds like aspirin, Aleve, and ibuprofen, also known as Advil. While they can ease your discomfort, NSAIDs can also cause an unwanted side effect, ulcers. It happens because the drugs reduce your body's ability to make a layer of mucus that protects the lining of your stomach from damaging acid. And the longer you take them, the higher your risk.
These kinds of anti-inflammatories are meant to be taken on a short term.
Signs of an ulcer include burning stomach pain, excessive burping, bloating, and heartburn. Up to 10% of ulcer patients will experience a perforated ulcer, which is a serious condition that requires immediate medical attention. To reduce your risk, don't take NSAIDs for more than 14 days. If you do require treatment for longer, your doctor may prescribe acid-reducing medicines. You can also try natural anti-inflammatory alternatives such as turmeric, fish oil, or complexes like Infladox, which combine supplements.
In some cases, the effect that they get is even stronger than what they would get with pharmaceutical. Patients can't vomit.
NSAIDs aren't the only reason for ulcers. Another common culprit is a bacterial infection. Researchers with the American Heart Association say adults under 60 who spend too much time in front of the TV are 7 times more likely to suffer a stroke than most physically active people. Researchers review health and lifestyle info from 143,000 people with no previous stroke history or other key diseases. Deaths from strokes were on the rise in people between 35 and 64. 9 in 10 strokes could be attributed to changeable factors such as sitting too much. Drinking and smoking tobacco during pregnancy may increase the risk of losing a child. Research funded by the National Institutes of Health followed nearly 12,000 pregnancies in the U.S. and South Africa and found women who drank and smoked through their first trimester and beyond had nearly 3 times the risk for delivering a stillborn baby. Lifestyle could be a factor in heart attacks among young adults. A new study in Germany tracked more than 500 heart attack patients up to 45 years old. It found 82% of them were smokers. They were also more likely to be obese and have high blood pressure or diabetes. And here's another good reason for staying well hydrated. A new study finds drinking plenty of water may help prevent heart failure. Research from the NIH finds without enough hydration, the body attempts to conserve water, which can activate changes in the heart that lead to cardiac failure. And that is a look at today's health news. A little bit later, learning loss for students during the pandemic and how to help prevent it.
Plus, we're going to continue with the heat and humidity for a few more days, and thankfully some changes later in the forecast. We'll get to it next. We had another deceiving day where it certainly looked nice to be out and about, but Quite frankly, we just continued our hot and humid stretch once again for our Tuesday. After seeing highs in the mid-90s yesterday, we dropped back to at least the mid-70s this morning. But thanks to at least a little bit of an uptick in our southerly wind, we only made it so far, at least at Joplin Regional, to 93 degrees this afternoon. But again, it's a shame that we couldn't get this heat and humidity that's parked right on top of the region to give us any relief from the heat, not even the random shower or thunderstorms. So at the very least, on the plus side, we kept things quiet for today. It'll stay quiet through tonight. But as long as this setup holds steady for the next few days, so will the heat advisories across the entire region until we get into Thursday evening. So the morning hours and the late night hours will be okay overall for any late night yard work or early morning yard work, exercise, but the heat advisories will continue through Wednesday and Thursday afternoons. I'm seeing slight rain chances, thankfully trying to sneak back in with a little drop in temperatures by this weekend, but I'm holding off until a front comes in on Monday. That will bring in not only a better shot for scattered storms, but a chance for us to get out of the 90s at least as we go into next week. In the meantime, though, looks nice, doesn't feel quite like it outside. 93 in Joplin, feels like 97 with the dew points sitting in the upper 60s. Most spots, in fact everybody quite frankly, is pretty much hot. Mid to a couple of upper 90s, especially in our western counties, but you factor in the dew points from the upper 60s overall to some lower 70s. Feels like 107 in Independence, feels like 97 in Carthage, but still these numbers are quite high as the evening hours get underway. But we will drop off, well, thankfully, as we go throughout the night. 82 by 10, 79 by midnight. I'm thinking mid-70s for most spots tonight before we go right back into the 90s again tomorrow. If there is another plus side to this setup, again, it's skies staying quiet. We don't have to worry about any big thunderstorms. They're staying well to the north and the upper Midwest. As long as this upper level ridge holds, while it does keep us hot and humid, it will keep us dry until this decides to buckle down later in the week. And certainly by early next week, that's when that front up north will finally start to work back in. In the short term, though, we will see temperatures cooling off throughout the course of the night, certainly after sunset. But again, quite a bit of a very mild, if not warm start in the morning as lows drop off to 74. And I think tomorrow, we won't have much of a gust to the wind. South at 5 to 10, maybe near 15 at times, will push us to 92 by noon and afternoon highs around 97. And with the humidity in place, it will easily feel like 102 to almost 110 for tomorrow afternoon. These numbers will repeat themselves again for Thursday as the upper level ridge primarily stays in place. But as it starts to weaken a bit on Friday, that is when the heat and humidity in place could try to result in a random shower or storm throughout the weekend, although most spots will be dry. But I want to take you into Monday and early next week. As the jet stream finally dips back on top of the region, that will allow the front up north to roll in. And I think that's when we'll cash in on some better rain chances on Monday and Tuesday. And hopefully by that point, get highs back into the upper 80s. But until then, 97 tomorrow with the high humidity. Alert day stays in place, and for Thursday with highs near 96. And hopefully more tolerable temperatures this weekend now with lower 90s on the board.
Meantime, people have to be careful out there for sure.
They do.
Thanks, Nick. The search for the missing from weekend flooding in rural Tennessee that killed more than 20 people is pressing on. Crews today were scouring a creek bed for any bodies that washed away. Meanwhile, President Biden has approved a major disaster declaration for Tennessee. The action frees up federal aid to help with recovery efforts in hard-hit Humphreys County. Saturday's flooding wiped out roads, cell phone towers, and phone lines, leaving people uncertain about whether family and friends survived. That rainfall more than tripled the forecast and shattered a state record. Fewer than 10 people remain unaccounted for tonight. An army of firefighters is trying to keep a huge wildfire from pushing toward Lake Tahoe, the lake surrounded by resort communities straddling the California and Nevada state line. The Caldor fire is just 9% contained today after scorching more than 180 square miles and destroying at least 455 homes southwest of Lake Tahoe. The California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection Chief says the Caldor fire is now the nation's #1 priority for firefighting resources. Coming up, helping your child avoid learning loss during the pandemic. First, though, we honor a local veteran of the Korean War. Bronson, Kansas native Elvis Reeder served in the U.S. Marine Corps in 1953 and 54. Corporal Elvis Reeder, a four-state hero. Topping today's Consumer Watch, the Biden administration is asking the Supreme Court to leave the eviction moratorium in place after it was challenged by landlords and real estate groups. The court had allowed an earlier version of the freeze to wind down. The CDC then renewed the measure through October 3rd. Groups representing landlords say Congress doesn't have the authority to give the CDC the power to issue the moratorium. Airbnb is set to host thousands of Afghan refugees fleeing their country. The company's CEO says it'll house 20,000 refugees in properties listed on its site free of charge. Airbnb corporate will foot the bill through contributions and donations to its refugee fund. As children head back to the classroom, the pandemic has left many suffering from a learning loss. Reporter Elise Preston has tips on what parents and teachers can do to close the learning gap.
Ready, set, count.
Chris Sanchez teaches kindergarten in LA.
We've been working with math tools.
Many of his students this year missed preschool last year because of the pandemic.
If there is a topic they don't understand or know, it's really great to address it in the moment, have them repeat it, and then they learn it.
A study this summer of more than 5 million U.S. public school students finds lower levels of achievement last year compared to a typical year, with an 8 to 12 point decline in math, a 3 to 6 point decline in reading. The data also shows achievement is lower for all student groups, but students of color and/or those experiencing poverty are disproportionately impacted.
Education experts say there are ways to close the learning gap and help your children thrive.
A lot of students are going to need some significant help, while some kids are ready to continue at grade level or beyond. So my recommendation for parents, wherever your child is on that spectrum, try to supplement with other things.
Sal Khan is the founder and CEO of Khan Academy. The nonprofit offers free educational lessons online and free tutoring.
20 minutes a day, doesn't have to be some huge intervention.
It's math time.
Chris Sanchez is trying to creatively incorporate things his students might not have learned last year.
I think kindergarten is such a huge, pivotal year for students.
He knows he is helping them get the foundation for the rest of their educational journey. Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
Sal Khan also discourages keeping a struggling student back a grade because of the impact it may have on the child's social development. He prefers to make every effort to get the child up to speed. Final check of the forecast next. The CBS Evening News is next. Then on KOAM News at 6, the Missouri Attorney General files a lawsuit to stop school districts from enforcing mask mandates. Also, local healthcare providers get more calls for third vaccine doses from immunocompromised people. And a billboard intended to find a home for a long-term shelter dog. Stay with us for the CBS Evening News and then KOAM News at 6. Hey, congratulations to the Pittsburgh Community Schools for being recognized for their performing arts programs. The Kansas State High School Activities Association selected Pittsburgh for the Performing Arts School of Excellence Award. That award goes to the school with the best performances across all performing arts activities, including debate, music, and theater.
We can't get together to do all of these, to do the whole shebang, ribbon cutting sort of a thing. And it's very nice to hear people of high status say, hey, you did good, pal. I'm proud of you.
Well said. Yeah, you did good, school district. Pittsburgh was chosen as the winner out of 356 eligible schools all across the state. So that is quite an honor and well deserved.
Yeah, and I believe that we featured the theater out of Pittsburgh High a number of times here in the morning show, and those kids are really good.
Had an outstanding theater program and outstanding in a lot of arts. Mm-hmm. The weather remains very hot, dangerously so.
Yeah, that's why the alert days stay in effect for tomorrow and Thursday because of the heat advisories. Highs around 96 to 97. And with the humidity, it's going to feel like 102 to 110 each afternoon. But if you have any good outdoor plans like car washing, yard work, or even outdoor exercise, best to take care of that during either the morning hours or late in the evening when the heat starts to back up. But hopefully we can really start to back up on the heat now as rain chances start to pick up by this weekend.
That would certainly be helpful. Thanks for joining us. The CBS Evening News is next. And of course, we're going to be right back here for KOAM News at 6. See you then. Let's make it a great evening.